Hi, I'm Charlie Beasley, a consultant at the global leadership advisory and search firm Egon Zehnder. I'm also a co-founder of EZ Plus, the Egon Zehnder LGBTQ plus and allies community. I'm absolutely delighted to be here with two absolutely inspiring women. Julia Hoggett, the current CEO of the London Stock Exchange and an advocate for LGBTQ inclusion and a role model for many. We're also delighted to be here with Pippa Dale, also from the London Stock Exchange Issuer Services, a role model for equity and inclusion and the founder of LGBTQ Women. Thank you both for joining us. If I start with you first, Julia, tell us a little bit about you, what got you here, and perhaps with a bit of a focus on the LGBTQ side and coming out.
Oh, what got me here? On one level, I have no idea. Yeah. It wasn't in the plan, I have to say. I started my career actually as a sociologist specializing in East Africa. I wound up going into investment banking because I cared about emerging markets and wanted to learn how countries in the least developed part of the world actually operate in the global market. And I have followed exam questions that fascinated me throughout my career. And that's what's taken me through the different jobs that I've had, through investment banking, back to investment banking, regulating, and to the LSE. The thing I think that being gay has done is give me that sense of distance, perspective, and otherness, which is actually really valuable. So I came out only 2 years into my career at the invitation of my managing director, which is pretty unusual. And when you're given that sort of gold-plated invitation, not only to be yourself in the office, but also to get actively involved in diversity and inclusion efforts, then it opens up a host of opportunities for you, I think. And it gives you exposure to different parts of organizations at an earlier age. It gives you a sense of what you're doing it for, and it gives you a certain profile and visibility.
Thanks, Julia. And if I put it to you, Pippa, in terms of your story and coming out in the professional sense.
I, like Julia, came out very early in my career, so working handsomely towards somewhere between 25, 30 years ago. But it's the same story that people face today. So I was a little bit out at work. My colleagues, my boss knew, but I was given the opportunity to work overseas for 6 months. And I obviously really wanted to take it with both hands. But the part of the world I was heading to, it was in transition. It was previously a known welcoming platform for the LGBT community, and it was under possibility that would dramatically change. And my partner, much to my surprise, which doesn't reflect well on me, asked if she could come too. And at that moment, I realized I had a duty of care to myself, a duty of care to my partner, a duty of care to my organization. I bravely walked into HR, had 1 or 2 conversations, but they were brilliant. We had a great time. I was very proud to be, overseas representing my company, and from time to time standing there with my partner. It was a very good experience, and since then has continued to be so.
You are a more senior LGBTQ leader who hasn't come out earlier in your career. I'm quite conscious there is a sense of, is that going to be accepted? Is there going to be a perception that I haven't been authentic in the past?
I don't think it's a lack of authenticity, because I think that's the wrong way of framing it. I think it is, for me, there has always been a freedom of as soon as I came out, the emotional and mental energy I had to spend to cover and to dissemble about certain bits of my life, I felt really uncomfortable with. And they wasted a huge amount of kind of emotional and intellectual energy, which all of a sudden you can devote to your career. And I also feel that I got to a point when I was talking to colleagues who were sharing very personal sort of things about their lives with me. And I wasn't sharing an equivalently important piece of information about me that they were sharing when they were sharing that about them. And it just didn't quite feel fair and right. But my instinct is start with the careful conversations with the people who matter. If you're the CEOs, have a conversation with your chairman. And I think what most people will find is a pretty receptive environment. But if it's what people feel instinctively they want to do, then they shouldn't hold themselves back just because they haven't done it before.
One of the other observations that we have had is perhaps lack of language around the strengths or understanding around the strengths that LGBTQ plus life experience can bring. And actually what we're starting to see is people who are LGBTQ leaders actually, we think, may actually have particular spikes in areas such as curiosity or determination or engagement or insight. And there's an opportunity for them to speak about that more and sort of make that a very relevant, centered part of their leadership narrative, for want of a better phrase. I'd be interested in your reactions to that. Are there any particular, I'm going to say, superpowers that you think have come from your experience that have really sort of stood your career up for success?
I remember distinctly the process of coming out to my family. And even though I came from a family that was incredibly liberal and tolerant and actually had a wonderful reaction, I still feared that I wouldn't. And that sense of taking that leap and having to, and that the cost to me of not doing was worse than whatever the cost of doing would be. Once you've overcome that fear, most other things aren't as scary. One of the things that my career has been characterized by is having to take organizations through various large events, be that the financial crisis or kind of emerging markets crises when I was younger, or managing Brexit, etc., more recently. But actually, when you have the perspective of, it's a really difficult situation, but I've faced them before, I'll face them again, I can face it now.
And Pippa, your superpowers, they're kind of...
Have we got enough time? No, I definitely think the LGBT community really does have something additional to bring to the table. I mean, just maybe no more or less than another community, but 100% that moment, however early you come out to family or friends, that fear, that living inside your bedroom yourself, not understanding what your immediate future looks like, you never ever forget that feeling. I think every single person knows that sense of otherness and fear of wrongdoing. So I think that teaches you, or it teaches anyone who's got any sensibility, empathy, really profound empathy. And in the workplace, it is about teamwork and being able to pull together, draw together people to work to a common goal is, I think, does require empathy. We talk endlessly about finding your voice in the meeting place, finding your voice on a Zoom call, being able to structure yourself so what you're trying to say is heard in a way that people can understand. And that all, I think, is something that LGBT people really face